The future of music.
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 The Future of Music podcast.
Hey there, and welcome back once again to the Future of Music podcast, where, of course, John and I, we show you all the time how to survive and thrive in the future of music. I am one of your hosts. My name is Ryan Withrow, and I chose this shirt first, I think, because you match me too much. My co-host, Jonathan Boyd, is here. Jonathan, first of all, how the heck are you? How have you been? And what are you excited about mostly for today? What are we doing? What are we talking about? I'm into it.
That's a great question. So first of all, I think I bought this shirt before you bought that shirt. So, hey, I got dibs on that one. But today we're going to be deep diving into all things AR and VR. So how it's going to affect everything in music, from learning, from teaching, to actually playing and making money in music as a musician. How does that affect you? What's going to be coming, and how can you take advantage of it? But first.
Yes. Subscribe. I'm going to yell it into the mic. I don't think it like amplifies it at all, but I feel like in my heart it does. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click the alerts, you follow on any of the podcast platforms that you prefer, and interact with us. Again, as always, tell us how terrible our shirts are, and feel free at any point to leave comments and engage with us. If you have questions, bring those to the comments. We'll bring them here as well to the podcast. But there you go, John. I had to tell them, subscribe. Make sure you do the thing.
Let's do it. Okay, so first, before there's a lot of stuff in VR and AR. It's like one of the most popular trending things now. Obviously, Apple just came out with the Vision Pro, or at least the promo for it, which we're going to get into. We're going to talk about that. But first, let's go back to the background. Where did all this come from? How did you even get introduced to AR, VR, the whole idea in general? And let's just have a little bit of a discussion around how did this come about? How did we actually get here with all of this stuff?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm kind of, I think, in the same boat as you, where I think I was a late adopter to the tech idea of the new, what we call VR and AR, right? So I remember doing the Google Glass thing. I remember doing that. And by doing, I was not one of the people like eating dinner wearing the Google Glasses. Is that how do they say?
But
glass?
You wanted to be. I don't know. Actually, that's an interesting. I never thought about that. Google Glass is.
I don't know. I have
it's
no.
Like pants. Why do they call them pants?
Yeah, and my tattoos. Why do they call the leg tattoo a sleeve? What is that? They missed a great opportunity for pant. All right, I have one leg. But yeah, I remember seeing it at first and thinking that it looked interesting. And back then, I was doing a lot of tech and marketing work. And I had a chance to go to San Francisco and go to Dreamforce, which was Salesforce.com's big old thing. And Google was there showing off the Google Glasses, whatever you want to call it. And obviously I was like, yeah, give me that. Let me try it. I couldn't see. I still to this day, I tried to look in so many different directions with the eye, and I just could not figure out how to use the thing at all. Even though they were like, you're surfing the web right now. And I was like, where
is it?
I felt like I was helping my grandmother surf the internet or something on AOL. I just couldn't figure it out. And, I remember starting there. I remember then going and looking at South by Southwest here in Austin at the cardboard ones too. You remember those?
I don't think I recall Google Cardboard. The name sounds familiar, but no.
I think they had a version. I think Samsung had a version. The idea was you got like this super cheap, inexpensive box that you built on your own, and you could fit a phone into it.
Oh, so that was a thing? They called it Google Cardboard?
Yeah, they called it
people just made those.
The Cardboards, I think is what it was called. It was the sitcom show from the 2000s, The Cardboards. Yeah.
It's the sequel to Family Guy, actually.
It's terrible. It did not get renewed. It did not get renewed at all.
The Cardboards. Anyway, so the cardboard thing, I just want to point out something, that we kind of have an evolution there of going from, Google Glass was one of the first things that came out where they tried to make it sleek. I said tried. They tried to make it sleek. Mm-hmm. And then the cardboard things came out, and that was kind of the beginning of like retail or consumer-based headsets, right? Like VR headsets. But before that, I'm not sure how you think about this, or what what you learned about it before that. But to me, the whole concept of AR, but especially VR, I think virtual reality is more of a ubiquitous term. Before, it always seemed kind of like a science fiction type thing. And when I say before, I mean like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Even though some people were working on it, there was like nothing nowhere near practical, to actually be able to do anything with it. And it was always kind of a joke. So fast forward up until the Google Cardboard thing, clearly we're making fun of it. So, I mean, it's kind of it's sort of a practical joke in a way. And then obviously Google Glass did, nothing came of that. But then we advance a little bit on the whole idea of the personal headsets, Google Cardboard, and we go into things like Oculus Rift and things like that. So what's your take on those?
Yeah. Yeah, I love Oculus for sure. That's where I was, and then they changed and they were purchased, obviously, by Meta, the big old tech. And yeah, I think the first time I tried a headset similar to that was PlayStation, because PlayStation came out with, I think during PlayStation 4, maybe, they came out with a VR gameplay headset, but it looked awkward and clunky because obviously the headset, pretty easy to nail that at this point. They don't change at this point. I mean, when you're talking about the first Oculus and the first computer VR headsets, they look very similar in design, maybe some changes to what we know now. But I think the controllers were really bad. Controllers looked like candlesticks, I think, back then, that you were holding, and they lit up. That was cool. But you really had this sense of immersion at that point. I think that was the first time I wore anything like that. And then, I was a late person to go to the Oculus thing, for sure. I started seeing a lot of people use it. My brother-in-law brought it out one day for a trip that I took with him and put it on my head, and I couldn't see out of it because it wasn't tight at the point. It was just drooping on my face. But I started seeing that there was something there. And I think the other thing is, when we're talking about old ones, when you're thinking about like the Google glasses and stuff, that was really out of reach. A lot of the stuff that they had done before was super out of reach for the consumer. So it's not like anybody focused on, let's do really cool games or experiences through this, because they were like, for the 12 people that own it, let's really work on this. But that was like the first introduction of, like, I'm just a normal person at my house. I can probably get one of these and try it out. So yeah, I think that obviously the evolution is much better now. I can actually see through it, and it works in that way. But I really, really started getting nerdy and into it during that Oculus time. What about you? I know you're an Oculus guy or a Meta Quest guy. Like, when did that happen? What was your experience with it?
Yeah, so honestly, I think, what year is it right now? 2023. So I would say, I think 2021 is when I got a Quest, Oculus Quest. Now I know they're called Meta, so it was an Oculus at the time. And before that, my view on those things was kind of like early video games, where the graphics aren't really great. They're kind of like playing Frogger or something like that. It's like, okay, it's a cool idea, but it's really not practical. You can't really do anything with it. Or you can't do much with it anyway. And I remember putting on the Quest, and my wife was in the room, and I was literally like, this is going to change everything. Like, this is a completely new thing. It's like electricity hasn't been invented, and then boom, you have electricity, or the steam engine, or something that big. I think it's going to be that big. I know that sounds, maybe a little hyperbolic at the moment, but when we start talking about where I think this stuff is going, I think we can kind of get into maybe why it's going to be such a big change. But for me, the reason I said that, and I remember I was playing this game called Gravity Sketch. It's not a game, but it's just like it's an art. I guess you call it a game, but you can draw in 3D space, and the whatever you draw is just there, and you can walk around it, move around it, etc. So it's like, holy crap, this is virtual reality. And you can program and make things and colors and shapes and stuff that happens real inside a computer that is like you being in another reality. So if we think about, I may be getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but we'll come back to this. If you think about how humans learn in general, we exist in this thing that we call reality, in the world, I guess. And you see people, you talk to people, you walk around in your house, you put your clothes on and brush your teeth, and we interact with all these 3D things. But all of these things are limited to physics and chemistry. So now with this new reality, there's so many other things that are possible, that can cause us to think in ways that we've never thought before. And that's why, I'm going way off the deep end at this point, but Einstein called it the imagination age. We're leaving the information age and we're going into the imagination age, and that's what's really fascinating to me. But I know we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So about the Quest anyway, I still use it. I use it fairly regularly, but I like to, like play ping pong and tennis and things like that. It's fun, but it's still kind of like a Nintendo Wii in a way. It's like a game. It's a video game. What's your take on that?
Yeah. I that's, as you were talking about the before days in like 2021 and everything, my head went to Wii as well, especially the no legs in the avatars, right? But that's very much it. And my experience as well was with Quest and getting into that. And I remember the moment it really clicked with me, that same kind of thought process that, oh my gosh, this is going to do something. This is a really big deal. Was I had it for a few weeks and I had played a little bit. And one time my wife was away for a trip. So I hopped on with my brother-in-law and a family friend, and we played putt-putt. And that was all we were doing. We were just doing putt-putt on the Quest. And two things happened. One, I took the headset off when we were done playing and like 6 hours had passed. Wow. And I was like, where'd that go? Like, first of all, I don't stay up this late. This is going to ruin my whole routine. As a person, I'm going to be screwed up for weeks. I think that was one. But number two, I started realizing that the actual reality, as we call it here, that's tangible in front of us, started to feel weird. Like I had this kind of euphoria in a way of, I wish that I could just like point at that thing and make it come over here to me. And I don't want to get up and walk to it. And it just, the realization for me that it could feel so real that it becomes more of a reality than my reality is that moment where I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. And I think that's probably why you start seeing the development. So like when we talk about now in terms of VR and AR, it's booming. I mean, everybody's talking about VR and AR. New things are coming out. We talk about the Quest, but let's talk about things like Quest Pro, where they came out with that super expensive, good luck affording it model that was just like way high def and had such a better pass through, so that you started really blending the virtual reality and getting more of that augmented reality in terms of what that looked like. And a lot of other places are trying to do that, but I think the big one now is Apple. I mean, Apple just came out with that Vision Pro Mo. It's hard to say, and it rhymes, kind of. But yeah, I think they were just waiting, like they always do. I have in my notes here something I say to everybody that asks, like, why do you love Apple so much? Why are you surrounded by Apple products? And I always say, like, they're never the first to do the product. And that's a good thing, because that makes them the best at doing the product a lot of times, because they just sit, they just wait. And they're like, what sucks about it? Let's just take that in. Let's understand what's going on. Controllers, forget them. We don't need them. Let's get rid of those. And it's just like incredible. I have a friend that actually went to the event, the release event, and got to use the prototypes and try them out. And his reaction was just like, this is the next game changer. Like we went from the Oculus stuff to now this, and it's just like, 100x. Mentioning things like, when we think about how Quest tried their best to be like, use hand gestures, and you try to use the hand gestures and they're like, nope, you're not doing it right. Put it in front of your face more. And I'm like, this isn't natural. Like, this isn't how I like write things or anything. And you'll like close a fist and it's still like, good job closing your pinky. And it's like, no, my fist is closed. What are you doing? But with this with Apple, he was like, they thought of the littlest things like that. They're like
Mhm.
natural state. He at first put it on and he was like doing the same actions. And they were like, what are you doing with your hands? And he was like, I don't know. Isn't this how it works? They were like, we put cameras underneath of it, man, and all around it. So like you could put them down at your side and just be comfortable and still be tapping and navigating and moving things. Like we're trying to get
It's
you in your
insane.
natural state. So yeah, I'm really excited for that to come out. I know you watched the promo as well,
Yep.
and I'm sure your mind really started expanding and kind of blowing up. But what were your initial thoughts and your excitement, I guess I could say?
Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned the idea that the very first time I tried an Oculus, I literally was just like, this is going to change everything. This is going to change everything. So when you watch the Apple, the Vision Pro, I guess you call it a promo, or the presentation that they did, that's like, this is going to change everything squared. That's like, holy crap. Not only is what I previously thought possible, this is like literally this is literally where the future is going.
Yeah.
So, before we dive too deep on that, I want to talk a little bit about how we've talked about the brief history of VR, and not more so now AR, but kind of how it wasn't really practical in the beginning. It was like really clunky, just like everything, right? The development of everything is like this, but now it's at a useful state. We know it's going to get a lot better. We know Apple's going to come out with the Vision Pro and everything's going to change again. But because VR and AR has gotten to a somewhat useful state at this point, even in terms of games, how has that affected music? How has that affected the industry? How has that affected players, etc.?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. It's something that I don't think we're just like games are cool. I mean, just like if I don't even think about the future and I think about what have I already been able to do that's different. I think there are a couple games out there that I've always tried out and I've really dug into. I think one of the biggest ones that is a great example of allowing anybody to be immersed with music creativity is Beat Saber, of course, which is like the top selling. This is a music related game app that we're selling, is something that allows people to do what I'm liking and what I'm seeing, which is do things music related and learn things music related without ever really understanding that that's what you're doing. Right? You're having fun in the process. You're playing a game. But at the end of the day, something as simple as Beat Saber is allowing you to do different rhythmic movements in time. Otherwise, you're penalized. And before you know it, people are playing eighth notes, 16th notes, and quarter notes at 150 BPM, but they had no clue that that's what they were doing. So I think it's making that available to them at this point without them even knowing, which is crazy to me that it's just going into the brain. So I think that we're going to see a lot more creative people already at this point based on that, and then growing in that without them even intending to do that. There are all kinds of really amazing games out there in the similar way. There's, I think, Smash Drums is one very similar to Beat Saber, but as the drums are coming your way, you're hitting the drums. You have to hit them at a certain, with certain strength, I guess I could say. And they'll have little numbers on them too, right? So like a tom will come through and it'll say 3, and you have to hit it 3 times as you're doing like a fill down the drums. They have air guitar stuff, unplugged air guitar, which is just, I would like to just see people in their homes, not in the game, playing that collectively because that'd be great. But even further than that, I mean, using music as a tool, I do this every day, if not every other day. I'm using the Quest and the music and the immersion to do things like meditation and to do things like guided meditation and focus games, and working on like focusing my brain with music frequencies at those special hertz, like 432 and everything. And really starting to dive into that world. So there's so many sides. There's the playing music without knowing that you're learning to do so. There's immersing yourself with the sound that's going on, understanding that kind of design and sound design is happening in the back end, and you're not even realizing that you're being immersed in that way. And then there are other apps that have full composition, right? Already existing. Virtuoso is one I've tried a ton. And that is where you have a bunch of synth instruments surrounding you. You could add new ones, and you just spin, you turn, you hit record, and you start messing with objects. You're not hitting notes, you're turning objects and hitting lights and having things going and writing a song that then you could say, hey man, come join me in the room, like listen to the song I wrote, and people can hop in. And that's happening now, which is like, for me, what's 5 years, what's 10 years, like if that's happening now, where's it going? But yeah, it's exciting for that, let alone the workspace stuff that you could do with this Apple Vision Pro. Being able to set up my studio setup and have the keyboard, have the guitar, everything, and pull in my screens, have a different environment to where I can be on the beach writing a song. There's so many amazing things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, so many. So like you just said, even just, especially if you're going to write music, being somewhere that's inspiring is something that goes, makes the music good. Right. So that's one application right there. You can just be in a place that that inspires you to want to be able to write. And then, you just made me think of something that you're going to be able to, and you can already do this, but it's going to become, I think, a bigger thing where you can write music and compose music without having any instruments. You literally, you can have all these virtual instruments, that you can quote compose on, probably record and export it as well, Yeah. And that's a super interesting idea, just because you used to have to go to like a studio, let's say, with all analog instruments, analog soundboard, super expensive. You have to go to you have to actually travel to a place. It's in the building. Somebody has to pay rent or own that building. You have to have drums, instruments, amps, all kind of stuff. You have to pay the power bill. It's just insane. And now we're talking about this little box on your head. You can literally do all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent way too much money when I was young on studio time, right? And yeah, it was one of those back in the day. You remember, it was just like a rare thing. You're like, I can only afford to go for 12 hours. So let's please
That's
do it right. Let's do it. Now it's like, yeah, I think I'm going to change that chorus like 18 times and it's fine. So like that technology is huge as well. But then, we start thinking about soon at some point, you're going to be able to do all this functionality without having to rely on computing as well, right? Like there's going to be a time where it's all there. That's it. That's all you have and need to worry about. You don't need to have it linked to your desktop. And the processing power that would require, which is a ton and would amaze me, is not that far away at all. I mean, we have like Mac Minis now that are like this big running people's DAWs and recording. So it's really impressive to see and really exciting for me. And again, we talk about this a lot, the adoption, not being afraid of dabbling into this stuff and starting to dive in, because I think that there is probably a lot of fear of, it's like the tube amp people, right? They do sound better. Okay. I'll give you that. They do sound better. Okay. They do sound better, but you can't convince 90% of them to try a VST, right? You just can't. But at some point, this is the norm, is what I'm starting to see. Like this will become the norm, is what I'm feeling, which is really cool to me. I think it's fun.
And I think it's actually only going to get faster, especially as the younger generation grows up with this kind of stuff. It's kind of like a horse and buggy versus a car. If you grow up with cars, why would you ever you would look at a horse and buggy thinking like, why would I ever go to the mall in that? That's really stupid. Why would I do that? So I think it's just going to be this thing that accelerates, where the younger generation, some of the older generation, but the younger generation is just going to adopt this stuff more and more to where it's normal for them, because that's all, that's what they grew up with. So that's what they're going to do. And this whole thing, this whole movement, I think, is just going to take over. But I want to dive a little bit deeper and kind of get into some weird stuff and go into the deep end. But let's start a little bit shallow first. So I think one of the things that's already starting to happen, I think my brother told me about this. He saw the Foo Fighters recently, but I think somebody told me that they saw the Foo Fighters virtually. So like, it doesn't matter who it is. I'm just using that as an example, but virtual concerts. So tuning in on a headset, or obviously you can do it now, you can do it on a desktop, but in the future, not so distant future, or even honestly right now, but it will be more of a thing in the future where you'll, sit at your house on your couch and put on your headset and you'll be in the crowd at whatever concert. I think that's definitely something that's going to keep growing. pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, I think that's big, but also we're already getting a step further into that. So right now, what we had thought of as attending a concert in VR was us sitting in a static seat and just like basically having like a 360 view, right? And just like
Yeah.
going around and being like, this is cool. And seeing the people next to you with very distorted, wide faces. But now with, again, the Apple Vision Pro,
Yep.
when you take photos and videos of whatever you have and you're like, let me take a screenshot of this or a snapshot or a photo in the actual headset, it's immersive. So in other words, if I wanted to take a video of my dog playing in the park and I wanted to relive that, they're starting to make it to where you can play that right in front of you and walk into it.
You're there.
So yeah, you're able to walk into the video and see new perspectives and everything and see everything as if it's right there. So you're able to
That's so
literally
crazy.
capture the nostalgia and the moment and be able to see it and go through that process,
Yeah.
which is just amazing.
So-
So in terms of concerts, you can walk right up to the stage.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. So imagine if you can, instead of having to sit in the crowd, you go from paying, just use a round number, $100 to go to a concert and sit in a sweaty, hot seat with all these people spilling beer all over you. And now you can just spill beer on yourself at home on your couch and just walk, and you could just walk around. Like, what if you could just walk up to the stage, walk up to the guitar player, see what they're playing, walk around as they're playing, look out at the crowd as the artist playing, Wouldn't I mean, I would do that.
I mean,
A lot of
first of
people do
all,
that.
let's just sit in the fact that I think the apex of our species is us all being in our homes, spilling beer on ourselves instead of being around people at a
Right.
concert. I think that is the
Naturally.
goal.
Of course.
But yeah, let alone being on stage, right? And being able to go behind that drum kit and seeing what's going on with your favorite artists, going right up to the guitar and being able to see what's happening there.
It's incredible.
It is. It's really, really great. And that stuff is not far away. I mean, that is super close. Within the year, we're going to be able to do that stuff for sure.
Probably.
If not sooner, honestly, just as this continues to grow. So yeah, I think that it'll start to break down a wall in that way of idolizing these people in the way we do now. They could still be these people that we look up to and love, but it'll really start to, through a virtual headset, connect us easier, I think, which is an interesting philosophy and thought too.
So on a slightly different note, let's think about the business side of things. So if I'm a rock band who's been touring for 10 years, 20 years, the traditional way of making money is you go on the road, you sell merch, you make whatever you make or nothing from concert sales, from ticket sales. But now just think about this. If you put on a show, you can still do that as a band. You can still go to let's say a club or wherever it is that you're going to play, some concert hall or something. You can still go there. Real people will still go to the shows. But what about all the people who can't travel? What if they can tune in on their headsets? And just imagine how many more tickets you can sell. Like even if it's $5, right? $4.99, like renting a movie on Apple TV or something like that. You instantly have a worldwide potential audience for every concert. That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's just one thing too, right? That's just concerts. That's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ability to, and I'll just dive in. I'll just go for it. The ability to, I kind of mentioned it before, where we're at now with this Apple Vision Pro stuff is that I can mark out my desk space, including a full keyboard, 88 key keyboard if I want to, and my guitar and all of my setup. I can make it so that when I put that on, I see my entire desk if I want to. I can put the monitors in there, which is, why not 800-foot monitors? And it can just transport my desk and my setup and me into wherever I want it to be. But the ability to start to see the instruments as well through this augmented reality. So we have this ability to create without instruments, which is absolutely booming and going to continue to grow. And a lot of people find creative outlet in that without having to touch an instrument. But I think it'll also start to satisfy the people that are like, no, I want to actually learn a physical instrument. I want to play a physical instrument, but they'll still be able to do that, let alone imagine the differences or the new things that can potentially happen or come from looking at a piano or whatever you want to do, like connecting that to the headset, being able to control stuff with an actual instrument, thinking of things like Rocksmith and how something like that can evolve with the Vision Pro stuff. It's pretty impressive.
It's insane. And actually, this leads me to something that I predict is going to happen more and more, which is going to be another one of those just insanely massive breakthroughs, which is the idea that you don't actually have to have an instrument to play music anymore. And you're not going to. So, in the past, what is music? Music is organized sound that creates emotion. And the way to create that organized sound in the past is having something we call a musical instrument, like a violin or a cello or a guitar or whatever, or obviously singing. But with this new capability of VR, the computer can generate sounds, it can generate shapes, it can generate whatever in front of you to whatever you're interacting with, will create the sounds. And just in the same way that we all learn how to talk before we ever learned what talking is in terms of grammar, all of us learned to talk to our parents before we ever went to school. So nowadays, and for a long time, music has been taught in the sense that you have to learn how to pick up this physically hard, this thing that's almost impossible to do with your fingers, and that's why so many people quit. And also, you have to learn this stuff that we call theory, and there's like notes and scales and chords and all this things, right, that you have to read and learn about. And it's all these abstract concepts. To now, personally, I think that music is going to be learned in a much more natural way when we make this shift to where humans, like, we will be able to put on our headsets and interact with whatever it is and whatever kind of interface is in front of us, and kind of learn music, learn to talk the same way we actually learned in like English, for example, or whatever language that you speak. But it's the same thing. So I think, when it comes to the education component, I really think that will enable so many more people to actually play music, because they don't have to go through all those really hard things that, statistically only 10% of people can make it through, the gauntlet of learning a physical instrument and learning all the theory stuff. It's just going to make it so much more accessible.
Yeah. And I mean, even when you think about going to college as it stands today for what I did, music theory, composition, right? Learning just to make music and like write music, still required that you have a primary instrument. Yeah. So even if you're like somebody that's like, nah, you know what? I don't even want to play an instrument. I just want to write music. That's all I want to do. I want other people to play it. Now, no, they're like, what are you doing as your instrument? And if you're like, nothing, they're like, sorry, you have to minor in another instrument so that you could do that. I mean, the best composers are playing piano, right? It's just, that's just how it's been for years. So
hundreds of years.
Yeah. And I mean, that's great, but starting to, I don't know, be able to express yourself without that impediment, right? That impeding thing that's there, so that you could just go right from like, I've got emotion, I want to get it out, I want to try writing a song. It's not like 20 years later you can do it. It's like, let me put a headset on, let me just play, let me just do it.
Yeah.
And then also thinking of that allows me to start imagining people that specialize in this stuff. Like, we look up to people that are guitar players and they're just shredding and they're amazing and they're great. At some point, we're going to be like, that guy is a killer VR musician. Yeah. Like, export his stuff over into my track. Like, I need to collaborate with him. It becomes its own variation of an instrument as well. So I think that it's just, I can't do it. I'll tell you at this point, because virtuoso, that was hard for me, man. I couldn't do it. But it was a fun experience, right? And I think that a lot of people, as it evolves and becomes easier and easier and easier and easier, you'll start to see people just nailing it and doing some really amazing compositions in that space. But I'm excited for it, for sure.
Yeah, and I think so. And I think about that a lot, actually. what's really interesting to me is just think about this, that the people that compose, what percentage of the population is that? It's a very tiny percentage of people, right? So that means that all the compositions that we're hearing and those virtuoso guitar players or musicians, pianists, whatever, it's only a tiny, 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 tiny percent of the population. But we all know that our favorite musicians, they each have something unique to say. Like they have a unique perspective, kind of like an art. They are artists, but they are oral artists. But each artist, like a painting artist, has their own different style, and we can see that. Anybody can see that, and anybody who listens to music also, you listen to your different artists for different reasons. Let's just say, for example, that you really love guitar players like you do, Ryan. There's a lot of different amazing guitar players, but you like different ones for different reasons, for who they are and what they express, etc. So just imagine when 50% of the population can start to play music. What are all the different types of things that we're going to be hearing? Like all the new styles, the new expressions, the new types of compositions, songs, whatever. That's going to be insane. But another point that you just reminded me of is something that I think about sometimes is, how do I say this? The saturation point of a new vehicle. And what I mean is, specifically within music, we have instruments. So we have piano, we have guitar, we have, let's just stick with those for now. Or let's just stick with the guitar to make this simple. So you go from the electric guitar being invented, and yes, guitars existed before that, but let's just say the electric guitar. The electric guitar was kind of the beginning of people playing like really wild bends and really crazy like feedback and things like that. That didn't exist before electric guitars. So if you look at the timeline of electric guitar, it kind of has gone as far as it can go. People did all the first things the first time, and then everybody copied them, and then now everybody does those things, and then how much further can you take it? What else is there that you haven't heard before? And even though there's a lot of super amazing virtuoso guitar players, it's like, how much do you want to listen to somebody playing insanely fast or a bunch of scales? Or it's just been done. It can be done in slightly different ways, and that's why we listen to our different artists, but it's saturated. That's what I'm saying. All the people flowed into this new vehicle, this new instrument, which was the electric guitar. They took it over a period of decades, about as far as it can go, and now like you can't really do anything on the electric guitar that somebody else hasn't already done or heard before. But with these new virtual instruments or virtual interfaces, it's the Wild West. What's going to happen? That's what's exciting to me.
Yeah, I think you just add more strings to the guitars. I think that's what you have to do.
That's what you do.
More strings. I think that it starts to remind me of synthesizer days, like back in the day, right? But that stuff still to this day is extremely ridiculously expensive for a lot of people to get into. So being able to do sound design on your own, on a super budget, free, if not, right, is kind of where I see a lot of that creativity happening with new sounds, new creations. Being able to just go in there and be like, what do I want to make? What do I want to do? Let alone thinking of the smaller things, the even more basic stuff, which is, we're talking about Western music half the time, right?
Yes.
And what that looks like. Well, now people can experience and play around in any country's form of music, all the semitones that we always skip in our Western music. And just like being able to be completely immersed in any form of music, and ones that don't even exist, right? Being able to be like, you know what, forget 2 semitones, let's put 8 in there. And just being able to do really cool things and write in new keys, in new styles.
Yeah.
It's just endless.
That's really insane. That's why I've been saying for a number of years at this point, this is going to be the new musical renaissance. It's going to be a new explosion of this insane global musical creativity. And you just brought up something that I haven't even thought about yet, which is, on the guitar we have frets, and those frets create like a certain delineation of sounds, of pitch. You can't go in between the frets. You can bend, but you can't practically bend every single string as you play it. So what I mean is, on the guitar, people come up with alternate tunings. They change the strings different ways, but they still have frets. So even if the strings are completely different tunings, they still are playing within these delineated sounds of the frets. And just imagine, what other kind of weird in between tunings that are not delineated that people can come up with. It's just going to be mind blowing, really. And when people start to get good at it, it's going to be insane.
Yeah. I mean, when we think about like a guitar, right? It's 12 notes just over and over and over and over and over, really, right? That just happen. But when you think about something like a sitar, like they're movable. They literally move the frets for different tones and pitches. But that takes time. Even that takes time, right? Which is like, okay, let me adjust, let me listen. Oh yeah, that's in between the F sharp and the G. Yeah, I can hear that. I can't. But yeah, for me, being able to do that in real time, even those small things, like here's, I think, the end of the thought for me as to what's possible. We're thinking, a lot of us are thinking, I should say, in terms of what's it going to do to music as we know it.
Yep.
And that's cool. That's a cool thought. But what is it going to create in music that we had no idea would happen? Like, what is music going to look like in 10 years, 20 years? It's going to completely change. It's not going to be what we know now with the same 4 chords on a pop song. And that's what it is. Yeah, it'll still be there. It'll be all of us at the age of 80 listening to it. But honestly, it's no longer in this box, I guess is a good way to say it. You kind of break that box open and you're like, what do you want music to be for you? Whatever you want to do, go for it. It's amazing.
And that's so interesting because, again, historically, like, really think about it, it's quite profound. I think if you think about this, we've only heard the music inside of a tiny percentage of the population ever in history. What is that? What do all the people on the planet walking around have some kind of music inside them? What does that sound like? It's going to be nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to sound a lot like, death metal or something. I think it's just a lot of notes just blended together very fast sometimes. But no, honestly, it's this difference of you played music right or wrong, which is where a lot of people are, and they're like, I suck. That's why I don't play that much, because I'm not good at doing music the way they tell me I have to do music, or the way we all see what music is, to just completely free expression. Like whatever music is to you, play with it. Go for it.
I think we call that jazz.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually what I'll call any time I screw up, for sure.
Yeah, jazz, man.
It's jazz. Watch, that's what jazz turns out to be. Jazz was way before its time, man. It was going into VR. It's what it is, man. Who knew? Man, Rodham and Steven was just like on point. But yeah, I think it's really, really great. And again, we talk about the education side too. So I guess let's go to that real quick, because I just want to make sure we hit that specifically. Because we're talking about this freedom of expression and removing instruments, but what happens to somebody that does want to learn that stuff? What opportunities exist for somebody that says, you know what, I haven't learned well with a teacher one-on-one or with the typical things, but I really just want to hold a guitar, or I want to sit at a piano or hold a violin, and I want to play this thing. I don't want to play it virtually, but they could still, I'm sure, advance and use what's coming in the future. So what do you see in terms of actual instrument education and music composition stuff?
Yeah. So, I think the first instinct that I hear a lot of people talk about, especially when I bring up some of these ideas, is that, this is not going to replace the guitar. It's not going to replace the piano. They get kind of defensive. But I think it's the opposite. It's only going to make more people play guitar, more people play piano, etc., because they now have an accessible vehicle, an accessible way to learn the language of music. So what statistically, most people, but especially most aspiring musicians, what they don't realize is that the notes, the pitches, all of the sounds that traditional instruments play, and the way it's organized, people call it music theory, but the way the language works, it's the same on all of the instruments. So if you learn the language, you can literally go out there and you play saxophone, you can play piano, you can play guitar, or whatever. And that's how people who can play multiple instruments, that's how they do it. It's not that they're just geniuses. They know how it works. They know how the language works. It's exactly the same thing as we're speaking English right now. When you learn how to talk, you can use your voice, which is your vocal cords, which is one instrument of communicating. You can write with a pen. That's a second instrument. So you technically know two instruments in English.
Mhm.
Yay. You can type on a computer. That's a third instrument. That's all it is. In fact, pencils are called writing instruments, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's just a different vehicle to communicate the same language. Music is exactly the same thing. Music is just organized sound that creates emotion. And you can produce organized sound that creates emotion on any instrument. And it just so happens that the same organizations of sound create the same emotions across all humans. So when we hear a sad song, none of us get happy. We all feel sad. It's the same thing. So when you
Unless you're
learn,
crazy.
unless you're crazy, yeah. Well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Sane people. So that's the thing. Once you understand the language itself, actually, the mistake most people make that we can see, especially guitar players, because we have taught like a million guitar players at this point, is that aspiring musicians focus on playing the instrument. They focus on the thing itself. But what they should be focusing on first is playing music on the instrument. And what that means is learning the language of music. How does the organization of the sounds create the emotion that I want to create? When you understand that, and it's very simple, you can do that in a day or two, honestly, especially with the whole VR thing, which I'll talk about in a second. But when you understand that, then your approach to playing, let's say guitar or piano or whatever, is completely different, because now you're listening to what you're creating. And then the only remaining barrier to playing a physical instrument is literally just the mechanics of getting your fingers to do whatever you want them to do. And that's one of the really hard parts, but that's a different subject. So, what opportunities exist for people who want to play traditional instruments? Well, they will have the ability to learn the language first in a virtual way, without the burden of having to learn the instrument, without the burden of having to learn theory. And they can start speaking, they can start communicating, they can start playing, jamming, etc. And then they just take that music and apply it to the guitar, to the piano, to the whatever. And that's what the best musicians do anyway. So it's going to allow them to, what's the phrase, leapfrog? Just leapfrog to how musicians see the world and start being able to create right away.
Yeah. And that frame of thinking I really like, because you're not, I guess it's not the choosing the instrument first kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's let me explore music, and then
Yep.
let me find what, I don't know, speaks to me or feels easier or feels comfortable, and let me apply it there. Let me go there, because if I didn't find the guitar, I could have easily failed at piano or something and just gotten discouraged and been like, it's too hard, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So that allows that to happen. But I think even further too, the one thing I'm excited about, even myself as a guitar player and going through and learning and continuing to learn, is the next generation has this ability to really skip mistakes or failures. And we talked about a bit before the concert idea, right? Being able to go up to the drummer and in a concert and check it out. But what if you wanted to emulate your top guitar player, like a Joe Satriani, a Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, John Petrucci, any of them, and you wanted to emulate that, and you're like, that's what I want to be. Well, back in the day, I'd have to like look at a photo and be like, how does he hold his thumb on the actual neck? Is it like this? Is it back there? Is it bent? Is it here? Is it there? And I'd just be like, whatever. I can't figure it out. Can't see it in this magazine. So let me figure it out on my own. But being able to go and learn an instrument, but like pause, go around the guitar player, say like, where are they holding their hand? How does their index finger look compared to their pinky? What's their pick grip? Like just those small things. Being able to skip all of those mistakes that take us years. And I think that's one of the reasons people get discouraged, because half the time
100%.
they're not learning the right way. And they don't even know that that's the case. So they get discouraged by making a mistake that they think is how you're supposed to play it, instead of just boom, just being able to do that, let alone thinking of now doing lessons with people, just maybe if you want to still one-to-one, or recorded lessons that are happening where you can go around and look at the instrument and you can see what's happening. It's really, really, it's a game changer. We've said that a million times.
Just
But
imagine,
exciting.
just imagine walking up to that guitar player that you're talking about on stage and just using your hands, scrubbing back and forth, watching them play it in real time, going backwards, watching them play it in real time, going backwards. It's just mind blowing, like exponentially more information that you can get that can help you excel so much faster.
Yeah. Well, let alone like doing the scrub, right? Being like, I want to learn this section, and having your guitar and being like, show it to me.
Exactly.
Like, how do I do it? Right?
It's
amazing.
incredible. It's incredible.
It's good. That's good stuff, man. Well, I think we went down a rabbit hole. I think we got
Actually, let's stay in the rabbit hole for about one more minute. I got one last thing, one last thing to mention. So this is the super deep weird stuff, but previously we've all listened to music, and we love listening to music. That's why we're music fans, etc. But imagine now if instead of only hearing those sounds that create those emotions that you love hearing, what if you can actually see it? There's a condition that some people have called, I think it's called synesthesia. And I actually have a little bit of that, where you see colors so you're talking about a number or words or something like that. It has a color.
Mm.
I don't know why, but so for example, the number 2 is purple to me. I don't know why, but imagine if all the songs that you love to listen to, imagine if you put on your headset and you're watching a 3D, I don't even know whether you call it a movie or what do you call it, but you're watching the song. You're watching maybe colors, shapes, whatever's happening. Maybe it's auto-generated, but you're actually watching it. That would be incredible.
Yeah, like just being inside the Windows Media Player is what we're feeling there. That's crazy to me. So I have to ask, when you see the number, is it like just a flat color, or is the number itself purple?
I got to pee so bad. Hang on. Let's stop there.
A few moments later.
All right, I think you can ask the question again.
Yeah. So the number, because I have to ask. I have to ask. I know people just heard what you said and they're like, what the heck does that mean? So when you think of the number 2 and you said purple, right?
Yeah.
Do you see it as like one, just like all color, just like massive amount of purple, or is like the number actually filled in purple? I'm just curious.
It's really interesting. So it's not just colors, it's also shapes. Like sounds have shapes. And I guess we can talk about that, but it's not so much like I can visualize the number 2 and make it purple in my mind, but that's not what comes to mind when I think of the number 2. I know this is weird, but it's a feeling of the color. So for example, on your computer, let's say you have an image and you're looking at the image, and the image is, I don't know, of the number 2, or let's just make something else, like somebody playing guitar. If you take like a purple overlay and you overlay it onto the guitar player, the whole thing is purple. Like the whole image is purple, but you're still looking at that same picture. Okay. So it's kind of like, I'm not saying that I see an overlaid purple on a number 2. It's weird. It actually exists right here in the back of my head, where it's maybe I'm just insane. I don't know. I've never really explained this to somebody before, but there's we talk about the number 2. I imagine the number 2 that is kind of a foot or so in front of my head and maybe about this big. In my head, it's maybe about this big, but over here. And then somehow there's an overlay of a purple color in the background, like as a sheet. And it's just purple to me. So like 1 is red, 3 is green, 4 is like maroon color. It keeps going. So that's numbers and colors. But also, I said sounds have shapes. So we've kind of heard stuff like this before. Like if we are recording in a studio and let's say we're playing the bass, we would use terms like let's round out the bottom end, or let's shape it, right? But in the back right here, when I hear a particular sound, I guess maybe I was going to say that it's like waveforms that I'm picturing, but it's not a picture and it's not necessarily waveforms. I don't know how to explain this. It's just a visual representation. There's one example I can think of. The very first album that I recorded, I remember thinking about this distinctly. I had a Mexican Fender Tele that I was recording with on this album, and I had a Fender DeVille. I think I had a 212 DeVille, Fender DeVille. Pretty sure that's what it was. So we were recording, and I remember going up into the control room and listening back, and the type of distortion that I had was like pretty light, kind of like classic rock, but more on the lighter side. And I just remember hearing the sound, and I was trying to explain it to somebody, and I can distinctly remember this picture. The picture of that sound of my distortion, maybe I am just insane, but it was like this. If I was going to draw something on a whiteboard, it was a hollow circle with a few dots underneath and a line at the very bottom. That's what my distortion sounded like. I don't know what else to say about it.
How do you feel about alien abductions? How do you feel about
I'm open to it. I'm open to it.
Oh, it's great. I was gonna say, have you ever gone missing for a couple days by chance? I don't know. But that's crazy, man. That's insane. Ready for it? Ready for it, everybody? Two things. Let's tie it together. All right. One, imagine when we can start combining the necessary element of controllers and hands and everything, and just start to have the VR going on and being in there and controlled with the thought and all of that. That's happening as well, which is amazing to me. Yeah, the Neuralink, right? Elon Musk is just going for it, man. He's going crazy. But it's like you talking about that. I've always thought about this, and it's nothing to do with what we were focusing on with this podcast specifically, but I've always thought about two things. How can I express to somebody what's in here, the picture I have here as it is? Like, not just saying like, well, no, it's a place with a tree and I saw like a dead tree next to it and you don't remember it. Instead being like, here, just there you go. You remember that? Like, just look at it.
Yeah.
That is a big thing. But outside of that, some of those times where you've been like, I wish that you could feel the way I felt right now. Like it feels, having that stuff, being able to transfer that, it's just so nerdy, but being able to paint those pictures and share pictures and just like tapping into the link of the brain as well, which is absolutely coming next. I mean, we'll talk small things, which is like evolution of VR and AR, which is like now and happening, but very soon it's going to be like, cool, we did that thing. What about that brain though? Well, what about, let's tap in, let's go.
So I always said that, in all the years I've been playing and teaching and all that, especially teaching, I always said that you can't play something unless you can first hear it, unless you hear it in your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the musicians, especially, we talk about guitar players all the time. The guitar players that get to the point where they are starting to focus on playing lead guitar, maybe a little bit of improvising, something like that. That's when it becomes extremely important to focus on what you're hearing in your head. And if you can't hear it, you can't play it because there's no music there. The music comes from you. It comes from your head first. So in the same way that you read books to go get new ideas, to do stuff in your life, when you listen to a bunch of different music, you also get musical ideas. And those ideas come in your head. And, some people have ideas and they try to write them down. But imagine if, not only for capturing ideas, but just imagine what you said about the brain, when we get to the point where you can hear something in your head and just automatically record it in your head. Mm-hmm. Or you can even just sit in your chair and think a song. Think about a bass part and a drum part, not even moving your hands, not playing anything. You're just thinking about it. Yeah. And then it somehow exports to your, Windows 95 laptop.
I got to play that back while I play some Snake, boy. But no, it's, I was going to make a joke of, now all the untitled files will just be in my brain, is what you're telling me.
Exactly.
Riff 144.3 is going to be living right there. I still won't be able to find it either. I still won't be able to find it at all. I'll be like, I really should have started naming these things right. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing stuff. And obviously for everybody listening, all the things we've mentioned, all the actual headsets and games and everything that we've talked about, we'll leave in all of the show notes so that you could dive in, take a look, and explore and have some fun there. But, closing thoughts on your end, John. I'm interested, high level, what's coming, but also like what should people be excited for? How should they be embracing this? And that's it. That's good. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think what I would say is, number one, you said the word embrace. Embrace it. Try to learn about it. Like, just go out there. You don't have to know what you're looking for. It doesn't matter. Just explore. Just see what's out there. You're going to see what's happening, especially with the AI stuff, the VR stuff. How is this changing in the music space, in the music industry? Listen to our podcast, obviously, because that's what we talk about. But just expose yourself to it, because it does affect you directly, and it's going to change everything. So you can't afford not to I wouldn't say stay on top of it, but to use an old English term, stay abreast of it. I don't think I've ever said that in my life, but it felt appropriate right there. But but really, to sum this all up, I think the things that I'm most excited about is that it's going to make learning and playing music a lot more accessible and easy for the masses in general, for the world. And it's also going to make making a living, in my opinion, making money, creating, monetizing it, etc., exponentially easier as well for anybody in music. So I'm really looking forward, and maybe I'm looking really far forward, but I'm really looking forward to this new musical renaissance that's possible because of all of this digital stuff that's available right now and will be available in the future. But really what I'm looking forward to most is just the entire world, the entire globe being more of a musical species. That's really, really fascinating and exciting.
Yeah. That's like big brain stuff right there. I'll just end on saying, if you're not into VR stuff, you should, because mainly my wife plays those games. So, that's the one game that I've gotten her into, the one console that she is willing to play along with me. If you're not getting into it, like just try it. Like, I feel like I have friends that are 50% one way or the other, right? Just because some of them are like, no, that stuff doesn't work for me. I'm too old for it. I don't understand it. And I'm like, bro, you're 33. Like, you're not old. But I think that some people are just hesitant, just the same way that a lot of people probably were with the computer, right? Yeah. And now, what do you know? It runs life. It runs everything.
Sure
and
does.
This is just one of those things. We've talked about it before with people wanting to do content stuff and being the first on a platform that's going to make it and take off.
Mm-hmm.
Being the first on something that has the potential to change the way we live, play music, learn, and really are just like live our lives again. It's potentially like the next computer iteration coming. So dig in, enjoy, and at the very least, play some putt-putt. Enjoy. That's what you got to do. Perfect. All right. Well, John, as always, thank you for being here. I'm going to have to hit you up before we hop on, just because I don't want to wear the same shirts again.
I think it works. I like it. It's kind of like a uniform,
I think it's good. You think we should?
Yeah.
People can let us know
see what
if
happens.
they want to. Just in the comments, tell us who wore it better and let it be me. In any event, thank you all for being here and listening to the Future of Music podcast. We appreciate you all. Again, make sure you subscribe, click the alerts, and follow. But until next time, we will see you soon.
See you guys.